What up, y'all? This your boy Manny, and this is Talking Sports with Manny. Episode 12. Let's get it. So, guys, this is my first fantasy football episode. So I wanted to kick it off with the running back rankings. These are my personal rankings, my top 25 rankings. I'm pretty sure that we're going to talk about this when I post this out. Be sure to hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media platform that you follow me on. And let's talk about it, because really my top 25, I feel, can go either way. So let's kick it off with number one. So number one, I got Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that was a no-brainer, right? This guy had over 400 points last year. When you have a running back that can get you over 100 catches, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving, and double-digit touchdowns, that's number one. And for those who play Dynasty and Keepers, Christian McCaffrey is definitely the number one pick, definitely the pick that you want to have. Number two, I got Saquon Barkley, another big name, another no-brainer. This guy right here can do it all. If there's anybody that can compete with Christian McCaffrey, it's Saquon Barkley, actually. I remember last year, in a lot of leagues, I took Saquon over Christian McCaffrey until Christian McCaffrey really, really broke out last year. I'm like, wow, not only is he a good running back, can run through the tackles, he can catch the passes. He can get the way that Christian McCaffrey was used. That's what made me rethink. And then with Saquon Barkley getting hurt last year, we really couldn't see his full potential. But I remember Saquon Barkley's rookie year, I was able to draft Saquon Barkley, number 8. I was picking at the number 8 position. So I picked Saquon Barkley, number 8. Then when he came back around in the second round, I took Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, you can say that I made it to the championship. I think I won every game that year except for the championship. Lost the first game and lost the very last game, which was the championship. So I don't think that there's any rookies this year that will bring what Christian McCaffrey or Barkley brought in their rookie years. But we'll get into that. Number 3 on my list, I have Ezekiel Elliott. What impressed me most about Ezekiel Elliott last year was that he could really, really catch the ball. And he caught over 70 passes. So that's really going to help his game. And my rankings are based off of PPR. So just know that a lot of people don't play a lot of standard leagues anymore. It's either PPR, half PPR, Dynasty, Keepers. That's really what's popping right now in fantasy football. But yeah, Ezekiel Elliott, man, he's one of the safest picks that you can have. Of course, you want his touchdown numbers to go up. Last year, it seemed like he wasn't having a good season until you look at the numbers and you're like, wow, Ezekiel Elliott had a pretty good season. Dalvin Cook, for me, is number 4. A lot of people will argue, why do I have Dalvin Cook number 4? For one, the system that he's in is geared towards running backs, and I know that the news came out saying that he's going to sit out, this and that. But if you are in a Dynasty or Keeper league, if I'm you get Dalvin Cook number 4. That's what I would do if I'm picking number 4 and Dalvin Cook is available. That's the running back I'm grabbing. Now, if you're like in a regular league, Dalvin Cook at 4 will be tough, but make sure you handcuff with Madison. So if you're going to get Dalvin Cook 4, make sure you handcuff with Madison. And you might have to go Madison in the third or fourth round, So this year is going to be a unique year with, sitting out and training camps. And that's another reason why I don't believe in a lot of rookies this year. I'm not saying that the rookies are not good. There's lots of talented rookie running backs in this draft. But for me, I'm going to play it safe when I get later into the draft, especially my RB1, RB2s, my first 2 picks. There's only one rookie that I'm going to go with, and I'm going to get to that when I get to it. But yeah, Dalvin Cook at number 4 is a very, very good pick. He ran for a lot of yards last year. He had double-digit touchdowns, and he really shown that he can catch the ball out the backfield as well. He's an exceptional receiver. So I like Dalvin Cook at number 4. And number 5, I have Alvin Kamara. I know that he did not have the best season last year, but when you look at it, he had another 81 catch season. And in PPR, you know that catches are king. So when you have these running backs that are getting 70 or more catches a game, that really they really have a chance to get into the elite running back group. Once you can catch the ball in PPR, I mean, it's golden. Because, for example, you have a nice running back that would, let's say carry the ball 20 times, 100 yards, no touchdowns, right? That's 10 points. But then you get a guy playing PPR, in the PPR format, he might have 5 catches. It's 5 points. 50 yards. It's another 5 points. That's 10 points. So 50 yards, 5 catches is the equivalent to a running back that worked hard, grinded hard, and got 100 yards running. So when you're drafting PPR, you really, really, really want to look at the running backs that are getting 50 catches or more. That's what separates the good, the great, the elite, the mediocre, the normal, the regulars. So for me, Alvin Kamara at number 5 is solid and is legit pick right there. Ever wanted to make a podcast but never really knew how? Well, Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. There's a creation tool that allows you to record right from your phone or computer, and as well as editing as well. Anchor will distribute your podcast to places such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also monetize from your podcast. You can download the Anchor app for free at the App Store, or you can go to anchor.fm to get started. So, guys, let me get into my next 5 running backs. This is running backs 6 to 10. So, at number 6, I have Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry is an intriguing prospect to draft for the simple fact that, he's entering his 5th year in the league. And his first 2 years, mediocre years of under 800 yards rushing, about 5 touchdowns each year rushing the ball or running the ball, And, year 3, you see that jump of 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns. Any running back that's getting you 10 or more touchdowns, that's putting that running back in an elite group. I know that Derrick Henry does not catch a lot of passes, but like I said, if you have a running back that's getting you 1,200 yards, at least 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns, that definitely bodes well for you. When you look at the numbers at the end of the day, you're like, how the heck did this guy get in the top 10 or top 6, top 7? So Derrick Henry last year in his year 4 rushed for 1,500 yards, okay? Rushed for 16 touchdowns. That alone is crazy. It doesn't matter if he catches passes or not when you're getting 1,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, okay? That's elite status, okay? But what Derrick Henry did improve on was catching passes. He had a career high 18 receptions for a career high 200 yards receiving and 2 receiving touchdowns. So when he's able to add that little receiving element to his game, that even makes him even better. Okay, so Derrick Henry is definitely a guy that I like at number 6. He should have gone higher. For those who are playing Dynasty or Keeper, Derrick Henry is a guy that you can rock with. But with keeping your running backs, you have to be careful of the contract situation. What happens is, for those of us that play Dynasty or Keepers, when you do keep a guy, like let's say now you're going to keep Derrick Henry. If the Titans do not pay him, he can end up in a situation that you do not like. So that's the gamble of, I like this guy, But when he gets his money, is he still going to be the same guy? I like this guy, but if he goes to a different situation, is he going to be the same guy? So things happen. At number 7, I have Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had a heck of a season last year. Now, Aaron Jones is very similar to Derrick Henry. So Aaron Jones at number 7. He had 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns. You see, that's that other element that I'm saying. When you have these running backs that are giving you double-digit touchdowns, you cannot go wrong. I'll take 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns any day. Okay. Now, what made Aaron Jones unique is, remember I told you guys about that 50 catch bar for running backs to put them into that next group. Okay. He had 49 catches, which is still good. Still very, very good. Almost 50 catches. He had 49 catches for 474 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. That's amazing. So 19 touchdowns. Now, I do not believe that Aaron Jones gets another 19 touchdown season, but I do see him in the double-digit bracket. I do see him being targeted more this season. He will have more than 49 catches, which is a plus. I see him over 500 yards receiving, which is another plus. And I see him about 2 to 3 touchdown receiving. And I still see him cracking 1,000 yards rushing. And even if he doesn't, if he's in the 800 rushing category with over 50 catches, 500 yards receiving, and maybe 12 touchdowns, that's still a very good season. So Aaron Jones at number 7. At number 8, I have Joe Mixon. Now, I know it's crazy to think of Mixon as a number 8 running back in my ranking, but this is why. Not only is he in a contract year, Joe Mixon now has A.J. Green back. They drafted T. Higgins. You have Tyler Boyd. You have a rookie quarterback. I know everybody's afraid of the rookie quarterback. That's the more reason to trust Joe Mixon. I believe that Joe Mixon is going to get a lot of carries this year. I believe he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. And I believe that Joe Mixon is definitely going to be in the mix for a lot of catches this season. I definitely see him in the passing game. He could be one of those running backs that get over 50 catches this year. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Last year, he had 35 catches for just under 300 yards receiving and 3 receiving touchdowns. Those are pretty big numbers for a running back. Like I said, any running back that's catching me 40 to 50 passes, I'll take it. If you're getting me 250 to 300 yards receiving, I'll take it. Add it to what you're already doing running the ball. So last year he, ran for 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns. I know that the touchdowns were down from the year previous when he had 8 rushing touchdowns, but he only had 9 total touchdowns though. So this year, 8 total touchdowns. So it's not like Joe Mixon's numbers took a dip. I just think that for Joe Mixon, the numbers were not consistent. That's what happened. And the numbers came towards the end of the year. But I see the Bengals having a better offense this year, and a better offense means a better Joe Mixon. So Joe Mixon at number 8. At number 9, I have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb had an amazing season last year, rushed for a lot of yards. I know he does not offer a lot in the passing game. Not only that, Kareem Hunt is going to be taking away a lot of pass targets that Nick Chubb would normally get. So let's look at Nick Chubb's numbers. He rushed for 1,400 yards last year, almost 1,500 yards. I believe he was second after Henry in rushing yards. He had 8 touchdowns. He had 36 receptions for 278 yards and no touchdowns. So he did catch a few passes. He did catch passes. So, 36 receptions is not bad, especially for a running back that is deemed not a pass catcher. So not bad. So I see Nick Chubb as an RB9. That's my RB9. He could go higher. Nick Chubb is in the same category of a Henry and an Aaron Jones. If Nick Chubb is getting these goal line carries. That's if he's getting these touchdowns. So if Nick Chubb can get you double-figure touchdowns this year, that can really, really, really elevate his numbers. Now, you might say, well, he had 8 touchdowns, last year. A touchdown or 2 can really swing these rankings. It can take you from 9 to 5, or it can take you from 9 to 15 by the amount of touchdowns that you are getting. But I like Nick Chubb. I believe his work is going to go down, but he's still going to be 1,100 to 1,200 yard back. I see double-digit touchdowns, and, his receptions might go down. Even if it goes down to 20, there are situations where he could possibly score a touchdown or 2 receiving the ball. At number 10, a lot of you guys are going to fight me for this one. I got Todd Gurley as my number 10 running back. Why? He's going to a whole new situation, okay? He signed a 1-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons. It's a prove-it year, okay? I still believe that Todd Gurley has elite talent. He has elite opportunity. And based off of the amount of work that he's going to get in Atlanta, that should definitely put him into the top 10. Don't be surprised if Todd Gurley comes back like Todd Gurley, okay? This guy right here can run the ball inside, outside. He can receive passes. He can score touchdowns. If you go back and look at Todd Gurley's numbers, the guy just knows how to score touchdowns, okay? I know a lot are going to hate on this, but Todd Gurley, new situation. I see him with over 1,000 yards rushing, okay? And it can go anywhere from, 1,100 to maybe 1,300 yards rushing, okay? And if you look at the numbers, ever since Todd Gurley came in the league, his first year, 1,100 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, okay? Didn't offer much in the receiving game that year. 21 receptions, 188 yards, no touchdowns. Year 2, 800 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, and then 43 receptions for 300 plus yards. Pretty good on the reception side. Now, I believe that year he got hurt. Okay. Either he got hurt or, he played 16 games, but I don't think something was off that year. But anyways, we go to year 3, 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 64 receptions for 788 yards, 6 touchdowns. So that year, that's 19 touchdowns, okay? And it has that over 50 reception that I like, okay? Year 4, he had 1,200 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns. That was that breakout year, that MVP caliber season. He had 59 yards, 59 receptions for 580 yards, 4 touchdowns, okay? I think those 2 seasons were monster Todd Gurley. In those years, he only played 14 and 15 games. So just imagine. Okay. Then last year, he was a bit off. Even in the off year, he still had 800 plus yards rushing. Okay. And he had 12 touchdowns, 31 receptions, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns. So you're telling me, so his worst season he's had was 850 plus yards, okay? His worst rushing touchdown season is 6 rushing touchdowns. There are some guys that I've named that are above him that haven't cracked, 6 touchdowns in numerous years, like Derrick Henry, So his worst season is better than Derrick Henry's second best season. I mean, Todd Gurley is a beast. It all comes down to, is he healthy? Or, how does his knees look? But Todd Gurley is a guy that if you can get great value, if you can get Todd Gurley in a second round, maybe even third, because some of these drafts are tripping, some of these mock drafts, people are just doing silly stuff. But I'm telling you, if you can get Todd Gurley, he can give you elite numbers, okay? At the end of the day, the worst that he can do is get you 800 yards rushing. Okay, and maybe 400 yards receiving, and maybe 10 touchdowns combined. But he's a double-digit touchdown scorer. He's a touchdown scorer. So go ahead and grab your Todd Gurley if you can. All right, guys, let's get into our next group of running backs. These are running backs ranked 11 through 15. So at number 11, I have Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake was a guy that, came out of Alabama and just never really lived up to his potential. I never really thought much of him. When he was in Miami, he didn't do much. If you look at his numbers, first year, under 200 yards rushing, in second year, 600 plus, third year, 500 plus. So you're not expecting much out of him. And every year he gives you 2 to 4 touchdowns those years. So this year in Miami, he was doing the exact same thing. And I think at that point, he hasn't scored a touchdown. Like, I think literally all the numbers that he got was from being in Arizona. And that system definitely fit him well, especially with Kyler Murray. You don't know when Kyler Murray is going to, tuck the ball and run with the ball. So that also adds added threat to the defense. So Kenyon Drake fit in perfectly, man. And from the time that he took over in that backfield, David Johnson was hurt. Chase Edmonds was hurt. So he just, he came in and literally was getting all the carries. And what I like about Kenyon Drake is that he's a talented receiver out the backfield. So last year, his overall numbers was 817 yards rushing, 8 rushing touchdowns. He was targeted 68 times, caught 50 receptions for 345 yards, no touchdowns. This year, I believe that Kenyon Drake is going to be a RB1, okay? Now, you might get him in the second round, but he has potential to give you RB1 numbers. Now, with DeAndre Hopkins coming and having Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, that offense is going to be very, very nice. And if you look at the guys on the depth chart for the Arizona Cardinals, I don't see any of them taking away work from Kenyon Drake. Not only that, Kenyon Drake is in a contract year. He's going to want to prove it to Arizona that, hey, he is their franchise back. So I see Kenyon Drake having a really, really good season. He's going to rush for over 1,000 yards. He has potential to have about 12 touchdowns, and he's going to catch the ball. So it just makes it just a beautiful pairing between Kenyon Drake and the Arizona Cardinals. Now at number 12, I have Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs was a guy that I believed in coming into the draft last year. I was able to get Josh Jacobs in a lot of my drafts in the 4th round because a lot of times people don't go for rookies, but just about every year there's a rookie that I go for in about the 4th round in a regular league. And most times they pan out for me. I remember one year, I told you guys already about the year that I drafted Saquon Barkley his rookie year. I drafted Todd Gurley his rookie year. Drafted Christian McCaffrey his rookie year. Ezekiel Elliott his rookie year. So it's like there's running backs that come into the league with a lot of hype, or you just have a sense of, hey, this guy right here is the real deal. So I felt that way about Josh Jacobs. Now, mind you, he only played 13 games. So imagine if he played a 16-game season, he would have had like 1,300 yards rushing. He would have had maybe 11 touchdowns. So his numbers last year was he rushed for 1,100 yards plus. He had 7 touchdowns. He caught 20 receptions for 166 yards. Now, he's not a guy that catches a lot of passes, so that's why, I have him ranked where I have him. Now, let's say that Josh Jacobs was a guy that caught passes. Let's say that they expand the offense to where he can catch more passes, man. The sky's the limit. He can go from RB12 to RB8. But right now I have him in my RB12. He is a legit bona fide RB1. He's a guy that when you draft him, you really don't know what to expect, but you know that he's going to at least get you 1,000 yards, okay? And if he can get you 7 or more touchdowns, even better. So at number 13, I have Austin Ekeler. Now, Austin Ekeler had a unique season last year because of the holdout of Melvin Gordon, which was stupid. Melvin Gordon should have just, took the money when he had a chance to take the money, but he didn't. So it, panned out perfectly for Austin Ekeler, even though he's a small running back, 5'9", 191 pounds, but he's very strong. He's very strong running back. And for those who are playing Dynasty and Keepers, he's 25 years of age. So that's a very good age right there. So his first year, he was just used very sparingly, rushed for 260 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, and caught about 27 receptions for 279 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. So he's always been that third down back, that guy that catches the ball and, runs the ball, from time to time. In year 2, he got to run the ball a little more. He doubled his carries and he rushed for 554 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. He was able to catch 39 receptions out of his 53 targets for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So you see that he's every year, getting at least 3 receiving touchdowns, which is great. Now, in year 3, which was last year, he got a little bit more carries, but the thing was he had about the same amount of yards that he had in year 2. So he rushed for 557 yards rushing. He had 3 rushing touchdowns. They do use him in the goal line, so that's something to keep an eye out for. And with Melvin Gordon being gone, I can see him going from 3 rushing touchdowns to 6 rushing touchdowns, and from 500 yards plus rushing to about maybe 700 yards rushing, about 6 touchdowns. Now, the receptions he had last year was just mind-blowing, okay? I think he was second in receptions for a running back after Christian McCaffrey. He was targeted 108 times for 92 receptions, 993 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. Just that alone. Forget what he did running the ball. Forget what he did running wise. 92 receptions for 993 yards, 8 touchdowns. That is some wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 numbers right there. Okay. Now I know Allen Robinson had similar numbers receiving, so when you have a running back that's going to get you premium receptions like Ekeler, he's definitely a guy that you can take in the top 12, depending on who you like. But for me, I like Austin Ekeler at number 13. He could have gone higher, but I like him at 13. Now, several factors to take into consideration. Tyrod Taylor hasn't been known to throw the ball to his running backs. There was one year when they had Shady McCoy, but they had no receivers. So Shady McCoy was, they force-fed him the ball. Now, with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, Hunter Henry being there to take away targets, with Tyrod Taylor as your quarterback, and then eventually they're going to go with Justin Herbert, and we don't know when that's going to happen. So it could help, and then it could hurt. So Austin Ekeler is one of those picks where if you have a gut feeling, you take him. If you're not feeling him, because he's not getting 92 plus receptions again. Then again, he might, because he does line up in the slot. So we'll see. He is definitely an intriguing prospect to grab in any kind of league. So number 14 on my list, I got Melvin Gordon. Now, y'all are probably wondering, wow, how the heck is Melvin Gordon up so high on my list? For one, I believe that he can rush for 1,000 yards. Now, I know Melvin Gordon is not, he's never rushed for 1,000 yards in his career, because he's one of those guys like Todd Gurley who gets touchdowns, okay? We're going to look at Melvin Gordon's numbers, but I see Melvin Gordon rushing for about 1,000 yards, okay? I see him with about 50 receptions for about 500 yards, okay? So 1,500 yards from scrimmage, 50 receptions, and I see him rushing for 12 touchdowns and maybe possibly receiving another 3 or 4, catching the ball. So let's look at what Melvin Gordon has done over the years. Now, I know that having Phillip Rivers is a guy who really targets running backs. He loves his running backs. So it bodes well for, anybody who's looking at Nyheim Hines for the Indianapolis Colts. That's a nugget for you guys right there. But so Melvin Gordon's first year wasn't very good. Rushed for 600 yards, no touchdowns. I was calling Melvin Gordon a bust. I know a lot of you guys were calling him a bust that year. In year 2, he had just under 1,000 yards. He needed 3 more rushing yards to have 1,000 yards. Okay. So he rushed for 997 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns. Okay. Then he caught 43 receptions for 400 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. So here's that receiving factor, that receiving number that I love out of running backs. Year 3, I have a correction. I did say that Melvin Gordon has never rushed for 1,000 yards. I do stand corrected. He did do it in his 3rd year. He had 1,100 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns, so which is a very good number for a running back. Then he had 58 catches for 476 yards, 4 touchdowns. Okay. In year 4, he rushed for 885 yards rushing, but then he had the 10 touchdowns. Okay. Then he caught 50 catches, 490 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's just beautiful. So if my running back is not going to get me 1,000 yards rushing, that's fine. As long as I'm getting 10 or more touchdowns out of my running backs, I am fine with that. And then if you can add 50 receptions for almost 500 yards and another 4 touchdowns, you can't beat it. That's 14 touchdowns right there. So like I said, Melvin Gordon is a guy who just knows how to score. And even last year when, it took him like 4 games to get going, even though he played 12 games last year. He rushed for 600 yards, 8 touchdowns. Those touchdown numbers are huge. And then he caught 42 receptions for 296 yards, 1 touchdown. And mind you, that's with Austin Eckler dominating the passing game and dominating those snaps where it's going to be a pass play to the running back. So he still was able to squeeze out 55 targets and caught 42 of them. So this year in Denver, I know they got Phillip Lindsay out there. I still believe that Melvin Gordon is going to dominate that backfield. He's going to have 1,000 yards rushing. He's going to have at least 10 touchdowns. But we know that the floor is 8. It's not bad. And then the floor receiving is 33. But then like the ceiling is over 58 receptions. And then we know that he's going to be in that 400 plus range receiving the ball. So with all that being said, Melvin Gordon, I have him ranked number 14. Number 15, I have David Johnson. It's another guy that people are down on because of the injuries. But if you look at David Johnson's numbers, it seems like every other year he's hurt, but then he comes back and dominates with a big performance in a big season. But yeah, I do like David Johnson in Houston. I know the injuries, the play, and I believe that he's going to catch passes. You're going to see the David Johnson that you're used to seeing. So in year 1 with Arizona, he had 581 yards rushing, and he had 8 touchdowns. Now, mind you, he was being used sparingly. I think that year, towards the end of the year, he broke out, similar to what Kenyon Drake just did. Okay, that year he caught 36 receptions for 457 yards, 4 touchdowns. He is one of the best receiving running backs in the league. Okay, since he's come into the league, he's been one of the best. In year 2, now that we know who David Johnson was, he really came into his own. He rushed for 1,200 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns. He was targeted 120 times in a passing game, caught 80 receptions for 879 yards and another 4 touchdowns. So 20 touchdowns for David Johnson. So don't sleep on David Johnson, okay? Year 3 was when he got hurt, okay? But what did he do in year 4? He came back. He had 940 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, still caught 50 passes for 409 46 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. So even in a down year, when you're getting that 50 reception, like I love, that, 450 yard range and 3 touchdowns, that puts you into a group to where you're more than serviceable. You're definitely top 15. Okay. Even in his off year, he still rushed for 7 touchdowns. Okay. So last year, which, he played 13 games, but he was in and out of the lineup. So it wasn't really 13 games. He had an awful year. He had 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did catch 36 passes for 370 yards, 4 touchdowns. So he was still a factor in the receiving game. Okay. Now, I was listening to somebody who said that Houston is not going to be good, that Duke Johnson is going to take away from what David Johnson is going to do. Duke Johnson didn't even have a good rapport with Deshaun Watson. Now, I know maybe after a year later, they might be better together, but David Johnson is more of an elite receiver than Duke Johnson. That's just my personal opinion. I believe that David Johnson bounces back. Even if David Johnson gives you 1,000 yards rushing, 7 to 9 touchdowns rushing, 35 to 50 receptions, 350 to 500 yards receiving, and 3 to 4 touchdowns, wouldn't that be worth it? Those numbers is what's going to get David Johnson into that RB15. Because remember, I told you guys, receiving the ball, running backs who receive the ball, running backs who can catch are kings in PPR. All right, guys, let's keep it going. The next group of running backs is RB 16 to 20. So this is the group where, you can still find gems. And this year, I believe that this year is one of the deeper years for running backs. Honestly, there's lots of good running backs, and there's a lot of good running backs that can definitely bounce back. So that's what makes it unique. You have Le'Veon Bell at 16. He had a bad year last year. It didn't pan out for him with the Jets, but the Jets did improve their O-line, and they still don't have weapons in terms of wide receivers. So you can expect Le'Veon Bell to be used as a receiver. He has potential to be top 3 in receptions for running backs this year. If he's used correctly and you get Le'Veon Bell at the perfect spot in the draft, it definitely can pay dividends for you. His touchdown numbers are down. I can't vouch for his touchdown numbers, but in terms of receiving the ball and production, and there's no running back to challenge him. So based on production alone, I have him ranked number 16. I have Miles Sanders at 17. I'm not as high on Miles Sanders as everybody else is, but for the simple fact that, they haven't brought in another veteran. Last year, he had a decent year, and that's with sharing the backfield with Jordan Howard. And the Eagles have tons of running backs, some who do different things. But I believe that Miles Sanders probably will have a good season this year. And like I said, you draft him at a good spot, and let's say that they don't bring in a guy like Devontae Freeman to take away touches, then he has a potential to blow up. Those who have him in Dynasty and Keepers from last year, those guys might benefit the most this year. Now, number 18, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This guy right here was drafted in the first round. If you watched him at LSU, he's electric. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. And he was the best receiving running back in the draft, in my opinion, in the NFL draft. So getting him at 18, it might be a bit high having him ranked at 18, but the potential of playing in a high octane offense that spreads the ball definitely gives him potential to really do damage. I know Damian Williams is out there, but you don't get a guy in the first round to not play him. So they're going to go into competition and fight for that running back position. I believe that Damian Williams starts out the year as the RB1, and then by week 7, week 8, hey, it's Clyde's time. So I have him ranked at number 18. I have James Conner ranked at number 19. With a healthy Big Ben means more potential for Conner to really do his thing. Last year, he struggled with injuries and mediocre quarterback play. But this year, you see Conner working on his body. And then he's in his contract year. So you want to watch out for these running backs that are in their contract year, like Gurley and Drake and Conner. You might want to take a chance on them because they're going to play hard. They're definitely trying to get paid. Number 20, this guy is another guy that's in his contract year, Leonard Fournette. What Fournette did last year was he caught a lot of passes. And it seemed like Gardner Minshew really, really loved Leonard Fournette. So you want to keep an eye on that. You want to keep an eye on, different things. So his touchdown numbers were down. He had 3 touchdowns last year. Terrible. He did have 1,100 yards rushing plus. He had 76 receptions. 76 receptions. He was targeted 100 times. So, like I said, Gardner Minshew loves Fournette. So you can now look at Fournette as a receiving running back, and he bodes well for PPR. He had 522 receiving yards. He had no touchdowns receiving the ball. So the touchdown numbers are low, but if Fournette can give you, anything close to double-digit touchdowns, if he can just give you 7 touchdowns with the numbers that I just said right now, he's probably not going to catch 76 receptions again this season, but I do see him catching over 55 receptions. So that bodes well for PPR, and Fournette is really falling in the mocks. So if you can get Fournette in the late 2nd, 3rd round, that's great value. That's the guy that you can, plug into your RB2, or you can plug him into your flex if you have a better RB2. There's nothing wrong with Fournette being your RB3. Okay. So guys, here we are at the final stretch of this top 25 running back ranking that I have. So at number 21, I have Chris Carson. Chris Carson had a great season last year, and you know that the Seattle Seahawks love to run the ball. So they're one of those teams that just off of just getting carries and opportunities, it really sets the running back up to have pretty good numbers. I know they'd signed Carlos Hyde, but Carlos Hyde is more of a insurance policy for Rashad Penny. And if Carson, if he ends up, fumbling so much, or let's say, Carson gets hurt, Carson has been fairly durable. Okay. So that's one thing I do like about him. Even with his fumbling issues, he does a great job of scoring touchdowns. So his fumbling issues have never really been a problem. He really came on the scene in his 2nd year, 1,100 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. He caught 20 receptions for 163 yards his breakout year, which is 2018. The last year, which was his year 3, he had 1,200 yards rushing. He had 7 touchdowns. And also, we saw Carson catching a little bit more passes. He caught 37 receptions for 266 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. So in year 4, I see Carson, possibly gaining about 1,100 yards to 1,200 yards. He might even have a bigger season especially if their defense is improved, which means that they're going to be running the ball and playing with the lead. So let's just say he gets 1,100 yards rushing, about 7 to 9 touchdowns, maybe even 10. And then let's say he increases his receptions to, 42, 45 receptions, about 300 yards, maybe a score or two receiving the ball. That bodes well. Like I said, based off of production alone, Carson at number 21, if you can get him in the third round, which he's probably not going to last, but in the PPR draft, guys go wide receiver crazy. If you can get Chris Carson in the third round, that's a heck of a value right there. Number 22, another guy that is in the running offense, Mark Ingram. He should be a lot higher on this list, but I just figured that he just fits here at 22 for the simple fact that, yes, he's on a running offense, but then you have Lamar Jackson running the ball. Then they drafted J.K. Dobbins. So you have that right there. But I still believe that Mark Ingram is that guy that can get you 1,000 yards rushing and 10 rushing touchdowns, just for the simple fact that they're going to run the ball. And when you get into the goal line, Mark Ingram is still a very good running back in the goal line. So I still do see Mark Ingram as 1,000-yard rusher and about 7-8 touchdowns. And he does decent in the passing game. He did better with New Orleans in the passing game than he is doing with the Ravens. But what was interesting about Mark Ingram in the passing game was that he did catch 5 receiving touchdowns. That's big. So it's not like he cannot catch the ball. It's just the way that he's used. So hopefully this season he gets more receptions. If he gets more receptions, you can expect another 5 receiving touchdowns. So do not sleep on Mark Ingram. He's criminally underrated every single year. People count him out, and all he does is ball out. So I have Mark Ingram at number 22. At number 23, I have a sophomore running back by the name of David Montgomery. He should get pretty much the bulk of the work. I know that he has Tariq Cohen over there taking away the receptions, but I personally think that he's a guy that can do it all. If you've watched David Montgomery, he has great hands. I see him as 1,000-yard back this season, about 6 to 7 touchdowns rushing, maybe about 35 receptions for another 250 yards receiving, and a couple scores. He has potential to be a mid RB2, and if he ups his reception game or if he ups his touchdown game, don't be surprised if he's a high RB2. He definitely has that potential. At number 24, I have Raheem Mostert. This guy right here really came on the scenes, but the reason why I have him ranked so low at 24 is because Kyle Shanahan just likes to go with the hot hand. One game is Tevin Coleman, and it's Mostert, and then it's this guy, and it's that guy. And really, Raheem was not really part of the plan coming into the season. But with injuries and inconsistency out of the backfield, he really stepped up and took the job. And drafting Raheem in the 3rd, maybe 4th round, if he's there, I'll be shocked, could definitely pay dividends for you. I believe he has the potential to have a really, really good season this year. And that's another running team, another running offense. So it seemed like this block of guys were guys that were coming from, running teams. And number 25, honestly, I struggled with number 25. It could have gone either way. Really, I could have stopped at 24, but because this is a top 25 ranking, I had to put in somebody. So I ended up with Sony Michel at number 25. Now, you're probably wondering, why do I have Sony Michel? Well, number one, Tom Brady's gone, and they're going to be starting a year 2 quarterback. So I know nothing about Jarrett Stidham. I don't even know if he's good. But what I do know is Sony Michel is decent. And at the end of the day, even if he has an off year like he did last year, okay, a lot of people say he had an off year, but Sony Michel was better in year 2 than he was in year 1, okay? He rushed for 912 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. He had 12 receptions for 94 yards. I see all of these numbers going up. Okay, I definitely see Sony Michel getting more than 247 carries this next up and coming season. Hopefully he stays healthy. He was healthy last year. Actually, he played all 16 games. And like I said, without Tom Brady, you're going to see more opportunities for Sony Michel. I have him anywhere from 1,000 yards to 1,200 yards rushing, and anywhere from 7 touchdowns to 12 touchdowns rushing. He's going to get a lot of goal line carries, so keep an eye on that. Yes, the reception numbers are, very low, but at the end of the day, he's a running back that, based off of production, has a chance of rushing for 10 touchdowns. So that rounds up my top 25. Honorable mentions are I had Darius Geis in here. If he stays healthy, he's a guy that you can get late in the draft that can really blossom into the bell cow. Don't get it twisted. Darius Geis can receive and catch passes, but it's always been his health. His health has always been an issue, but I believe that this is the year that Darius Geis stays healthy and breaks through. Marlon Mack is a very nice, intriguing guy later on. Everybody's saying Jonathan Taylor, I get it, but Marlon Mack did rush for 1,000 yards last year, and he missed some games. He could have had double-digit rushing touchdowns, and he's definitely serviceable as a receiver. And like I said, having Phillip Rivers is definitely going to help Marlon Mack in terms of receiving passes. Jonathan Taylor is also a nice option here as well in this honorable mention. So Taylor and Mack are going to have good numbers. I see there's a scenario where both backs get over 800 yards rushing. There's a scenario where both backs get over 7 rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor is the better receiving running back. So we'll see what happens. It's very interesting right there, but I do like Marlon Mack a lot this year, especially the first 6 to 7 weeks. Then you have Devin Singletary out here. He's going to be splitting carries with Zach Moss. You have Robert Swift. He's a very good receiving back as well. But that whole situation in Detroit, they love to pass the ball. They've never had a running back to get 1,000 yards in how many years? I don't even know. I don't feel like doing the research on that one. I'm not sure if LeGarrette Blount got 1,000 yards that year. I don't know. But anyways, so have fun with that backfield. Have fun with that Detroit backfield. Then another guy I have in this list is Jonathan Howard. Jonathan Howard has a potential to really do some things this year. Jordan Howard is a guy that can get you 1,000 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. But then again, it is Miami. I don't know what that offensive line is looking like, but they do have more weapons on offense this year. They didn't have a running back like Howard last year, especially with Drake. Drake just didn't fit with what they were trying to do. So I definitely think that Jordan Howard has potential to really do some stuff. So if you can get Jordan Howard late in your draft, you might want to get him. So guys, this wraps up my episode. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for always supporting. Don't forget to share this podcast with one or more friends. Hopefully you guys got some nuggets from this top 25 RB ranking. I'd love to hear back from you guys to see what you guys think. Let's talk about it. Like I said, thank you guys. Follow me on IG and Twitter at TS with Manny. I'm on YouTube as well as Facebook, Talking Sports with Manny. Thank you guys. Love you guys. Y'all continue to stay safe. I'm out.